All right, take two. War Room, round 21. That's right. China out of the war. No, I'm sorry. China's back in the war. Um, actually, China's back in the war. Uh, then USSR out of the stress chart. Um, and the rest, UK, Japan, and America.
As long as
losing three. They're in the blue. So Germany and Italy are out of the war. I did a KGF strategy. And we do have some battles, some unusual situations. For instance, let me show you that Italy and Japan got into the south, and for much of the game owned the south of Africa. Pretty incredible. Okay. For much all the game, starting turn 4 or 5, Japan owned Australia. Probably turn 6 or so, I owned the British owned Libya, and then successively. That was a big. This, if you had a choice between this right here and all of the south of Africa, believe it or not, that's what to choose. North Africa. It really made for a very wealthy UK. Okay, so I wanted to review some things. So overview of the board, just over here. Dominance. We do have some bomb tokens, 3 bomb tokens. Tom did some massive bombing campaigns and not real successful, but 3 knocked it down. I think at one point in time, very early in the game, he did a very aggressive bombing raid. Could have had a significant impact if he had gotten lucky. But Germany, I did that and came to regret it later on. He did this to me when America took over Poland, and then Moscow. He did this. He could have shut that down, but he did shut down the rail system, which now only goes no rail between Volga and Bryansk, but rails from Volga, Caucasus, and then north of Bryansk, Archangel, and then Urals. And Urals is as far as you can get right now. Bombed India pretty early on. India was at 2 or 3, probably around 5. And then I was able to take over pretty late game, probably turn 15, Turkey. And that made it so that troops in France can make it all the way to Iran. But you are always tempted to write an order because you really want to send them to India, but you can't. And when you write that order, it's canceled. So be careful. He could have cut the rails. If you wanted to cut the rails altogether, you could bomb Archangel if you're the Axis. So some surprising rail system stuff in this that got pretty complicated. He tried to bomb Bulgaria, Romania at one point in time and failed with a bomber, 4 dice. If he had just got 1 bomb token here, he would have cut the string, and I wouldn't have been able to get France to Iran, and instead would have had to stop in Bulgaria and then walk my troops 1, 2, 3. So obviously that is a lot slower progress if he's able to stop my progress. Now here you could cut the rails here, Bulgaria, Romania, which he tried, Poland, which he succeeded, and Baltic State. If you cut that rail, that cuts Europe in half, and all of a sudden, and I worked hard. I paid a lot of civilian goods to get my people, every one of my nations, out of dysfunctional rail systems. Lots of money, and that's one of the reasons why the game is going on so long, is because instead of spending money on troops, I actually spend it on civilian goods to keep my boys moving. Okay. The other thing I did was I bid to go first a lot, and I bid a lot sometimes in order to pin his troops and know exactly what the situation was going to be. I'm a heavy bidder. He obviously thinks that I bid too much, and I understand that, and that's a debate that his ships. He built lots and lots of ships. I think he built I think altogether he might have built 10 aircraft carriers, which maybe 8. Lots of Air Force, just very handy. And of course, it's the only unit on the board that can go 5 spaces. You move them 2, and then 3 spaces. It's only aircraft that can go 3 spaces, and then 1 afterward. So it does have quite a range. I was able to send some troops down here to harass. I grabbed the Philippines at one point in time, Samaria, kind of just distracting him and using up his orders. And Japan is already so pinched for orders. Then the other thing I did a lot of was waves. These have arrived here, and you notice they're not all in one bunch, but they're staggered. Just the logistics of marching them to where they got to go, and then proceeding by foot off the rail. And he almost had that going here, where he had troops coming from Australia, which were getting in toward India, but he just ran out of moves. But Australia became central to him because he started producing. He could produce 3 troops per round there. Here, he only had 2 and then finally 1. And here he had 2 and then finally 1. So producing 1 per turn there. As far as the Japanese command stack management, by the way, we got huge in command stack management because both America and Japan had to be very careful not to produce troops that would be disbanded because you didn't have a command stack. So that was another thing we went to pretty heavily. Then eventually he shut India down. So even if he took over India wouldn't have been and pretty early it was down to just 2 doors. So Japanese ability to produce, as much as you grab this or have this, you could pretty easily shut them down if you're American from launching from East Kazakh, which through Mongolia touches Peping, or through R-14 touches Gavrovsky. So pretty easy to shut those doors down. I did try one bombing campaign again. I just didn't decide to go back because I figured if he's only dropping 1 there a piece, it's actually kind of more beneficial to me than it is to him. So yeah. What else do I have? We did our game by phone, mostly. Now he did record it sometimes on Twitch, and he did also record it on YouTube once, and I recorded it on YouTube a couple times. But mostly we did it by phone, which I want to tell you I think is pretty effective. Not bad at all. The upside down stack is the production. The other thing, you have to have a good connection, and that we struggled with. Hey, what'd you say? Huh? What? So that was an issue. So if, for instance, you move to a Zoom kind of, you'd combine the audio quality with the fact that you're playing, and you can see more obviously with the Zoom call. Or both of you being on the internet. I also, at one point in time, used another device to record so I could have a backup. That's something else we did. Obviously, this lasted 3 months, and that means the table was occupied, and that's an issue unless you have that kind of space available and that kind of table that can be just left up. Or if you have cats, that could be an issue. Temperament. If there's a lot of trust. Like, for instance, there was a round where my greens were dying faster than my yellows. There was another round where his reds were dying faster than his yellows. I mean, it was just amazing. And it was tough because he lost a whole squad of bombers. There was another turn where he lost a stack of planes because he put it in a ground battle wanting to destroy my troops, and I put all mine into an air battle. So just be aware that you do the long game. It's a lot more thoughtful, and you're just going to be able to calculate a lot more stuff, and the play is going to be a lot better, but it could be frustrating too. Waves. I just got that thing going with the Americans going from up to, B-28 Eastern Canada, I think it is, and then from there to A3. Sometimes I moved because I needed to I walked up to Western Canada and then just went into the ocean at A1 and then stopped in A2 and then went from A2 not to A3 but to A4 and putting myself pretty deep into Russia, into Urals, R12. And R12 became a central destination for me the whole game for American and Russian troops. I think going first is really cool. Like I said, you can pin his troops and know exactly what's going to happen. He did one time use a push mechanic. I pinned a bunch of his guys. He moved guys in first, and then he popped guys out to the other side to overrun my position. I do that, and that's one of my favorite moves. What I call the overrun from Memoir 44. I was aggressive with America. I moved troops into powerful combat position. I bid to go first, and I moved my troops from P19 up to P2. I moved ships from P5 to P3, and I brought bombers and fighters to R16 first round. So I had a lot of force projection on P1, which made him run away. He retreated down to the south, and unfortunately for me, that was convenient with his strategy to take over Australia, but it also discouraged him from moving troops off of the island of Japan, which was convenient for me because he wasn't able to get as many troops onto the mainland as he really needed. Forking. So 14, that is forking both the Hawaiian Islands, P4, P3, P10, and also, of course, R15, R14, R16. So, and if I had ships in the water, P1. So there's a lot of forking going on with that P14. Really cool to use that mechanic. And also, he's got 19 here. He's using bombers for something else, which is he's trying to scare me off from moving into C5. There's not a lot of air here. I'm going to get 2 dice against him, and he's going to have 12 dice rolling against these yellows. So this is a great way to discourage me from moving in at the same time as, not really having a lot of force there. So cool use of bombers in that situation. Stress calculator. This game, because I was not in a live game, I used things like these stress tokens, and I would go and I would use these stress tokens to guess how much stress I was going to suffer. And if you really want to go wild and become a card counting genius, you could actually try to guess how many stress you're going to receive from your units, and anticipating that by civilian goods, or on the other hand, account for the stress you're going to lose. And that's how I kept Moscow out of the pink economic collapse. Quickly, my son's got to go to bed, but Tom thinks that the biggest reason he did not struggled at the end was because he didn't concentrate on one nation. So he did have the Russia into the orange a couple of times, not just once, twice, 2 different occasions. Might have even stayed there for maybe 3 or 4 rounds I spent as Russia in the orange, but he wasn't able to push me into the collapse. Also, Japan, not enough commands. Even if Japan goes wild and gets powerful, it just has 9 commands, and it struggles with industrial might. Producing troops in Australia, tough, because that's a command stack. Always has to be fed down there, and you have to kind of wait until you get 8 troops or 6 troops and then move out. So that's 2 turns of builds before you actually get a effective fighting force. Purchase. I purchased, like I said, I purchased a lot of civilian goods. Probably, I have a hard time saying, but probably as much as 20, maybe even 20, maybe even 30 civilian goods throughout the game. Yeah, a lot. He thinks I spent a lot. He is not a big bidder, but there are times where it was crucial for me to go first. But I got to tell you, I always feel like it's crucial for me to go first. So I'm an aggressive player, and I like to sort of set the tempo of the game. Like I said, I did not defend Egypt, but withdrew from Egypt, I think, to the Middle East. And he moved into Egypt, and then when I had the power to take it back, he actually slipped past me. And then, like I said, I chose to go not south to pursue him, because I knew we would have a sort of a Malachi crunch here from Happy Days if I had done that. But I saw an opportunity to go west, young man. And that ended up, actually, if you got a choice, do that. Because that is pretty amazing wealth right there. And England was just a rich man the whole game and kept out of stress the whole game too. A4 usage, talked about that already. A4 became my central location instead of A3. A3 was not the 91 of this game. He thinks he should have broke the pack earlier. He certainly had enough medals the whole game to do that. And railway in Turkey, I took that over, and like I said, that's very useful, going all the way from Paris to Iran. So really good. He did try to cut this line, I think I said that before, with Bulgaria, bombing in Bulgaria, but he failed to roll a white or a black. So that's cool. I just want to let you know that out of this game, there's kind of a couple of rule changes, and then I'm going to wrap this up. So a couple of rule changes. Flipping of the cards. So if a nation collapses, from now on, the cards will be flipped permanently. So even if an ally takes it over or an enemy takes it over, it's permanently flipped. Which means some of the countries that only produce one, looking for one right here. I think it's Urals. No, Yakut, I think, only produces one. Yakut only produces one oil. If Russia collapsed, that would be worth nothing. Okay, that's a new rule that he will be rolling out. No units. If you have no units on the board, then your token will progress on the stress chart by one each round of play. So turn 4, no units on the board for China. China will go from, say it's in the blue, it immediately goes to the yellow. And then the next turn will go to the orange and then the pink. Okay, so that will put the nation out of collapse, and it will cause all of these territories, which might be in China's hands, to be flipped over. Okay? And then the cost threshold. So the old rule said that in order for you to go backward, you had to pay 5 to go backward. That is no longer the case. It is now your stress threshold. So Italy only has to pay 4 to go backward on the stress wheel. America only has to pay 5. But Japan has to pay 7 to go backward on the stress wheel. And of course, so the stress wheel is both a blessing and a curse. So better to keep, so instead of paying to go backward, which we would do in this game quite a bit, you just have to keep from going there ever in the first place. All right, that is round 20. I think like I said, I think we've gone places that just, I don't know. I had thoughts this game that I had never had before. So, especially stress calculations and keeping ahead of that wheel. That wheel became huge this game, and that